Yasas, Kalispera, good afternoon. It is currently 70 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 21 degrees Celsius. Today is May 1st. Fun fact, this is the 34th anniversary of my first international backpacking trip. May 1st, 1990, when I was 18 years old, I hopped on a flight from San Francisco to London, England, and began a summer of backpacking around Europe. So, the epic Greek road trip has begun. Rental car there. I know nothing about these ruins, but they look at least a century old, I would say. There you can see plane taking off from the Athens International Airport out there. I rented the car there. It cost $302 US or 283 euros, but that is for one full week. That works out to $43 per day, including all taxes and fees, and also including an added fee to take the car on a ferry. Now, I'm not 100% certain that I'm actually going to take the car on a ferry, but that is highly likely. I haven't figured out my plans beyond today. The first stop is Marathon. Now, it is not a coincidence that that name will sound familiar. The famous 26-mile run, of course. The reason for the name of the run, the marathon, will be explained soon when we arrive in Marathon. So it is about a 30-minute drive away north from here, and there are a few very interesting things to see there and much to explain about the significance of Marathon. Let's do it. Greek adventure begins. Meow. So, a bit of a disappointment here. This is the St. Ephraim Monastery, one of the oldest monasteries in the general Athens area, dating back to the 10th century. I had seen on Google Maps that it was going to be closed, but I was hoping that at least you could maybe walk around it, but no, locked gate here. It is currently 1 p.m. and it doesn't open until 4. The place you enter is a sacred place and is a house of God. Men and women must be nicely dressed. A nice mosaic here. I could see the monastery while driving up here. It looks very spectacular. Now totally blocked by these walls, but let's poke around and see if perhaps we can at least get a view of it from somewhere around here. So I ended up hopping back in the car so that I could drive around to the other side, where unfortunately we have another closed gate, but you can see there the spire or tower or whatever of the monastery. There's a house here. I just spoke with a woman here who's car, that is, and she was concerned I was blocking her, but I was making a point of not blocking her. And I said, well, I just wanted to poke up this road for a minute and see if I can get a view of the monastery. Oh, but this doesn't go anywhere. What is this old car? Oh, we have a path. Okay, let's just try to get a bit of a view looking down. And so the reason that I showed the sixth symbol there is just to mention about the rental car a little more, which is that I rented that with Sixt. So there was a cheaper option. I looked on Expedia.com for the Athens International Airport, and there was another car available quite a bit cheaper. It would have been maybe $30 a day. They required a 1,600 euro deposit, and that was sounding a little sketchy. And then I read the reviews of it, and it sounded like this typical place where they will try to charge you for kind of made up supposed damages, kind of like what I experienced in Thailand recently with the motorbike that I rented, in which they have you hostage with your passport, or in this case a 1,600 euro deposit, and then try to charge you for fake made up damages or whatever. And so it is not worth saving 70 bucks, 100 bucks to be stressing out on your trip about what it's going to be like returning the car. I have rented with Sixt car rental company many times in various countries, and they have always been reliable and haven't given me any hassle, so I can recommend them. I used their website instead of Expedia to book it last night, and there were no extra charges when I showed up at the airport to pick it up. So I think that that must be Avia Island out there, which is where I am very likely going next from here. I have to figure out my plans, including book a ferry that I can take the car on. So I need to stop at a ferry booking office. I could do it online as well, but in this case especially, booking for the car, and I will probably book return. Then I want to, just go to an office and book it in person. And so I believe that this is the town of Marathon stretching out here, and there are more historical points to visit related to the significance of Marathon, which I will get to soon. So there you can see the monastery looks quite nice, but let's get rocking and rolling and go see more of this incredibly historical town here. And so this is the modern day town of Marathon. Nothing too remarkable, but what occurred here is in fact one of the most important turning points in all of human history. And so while I am driving to the next location, I have to clarify that the largest town that I just drove through there is not actually Marathon. That was Nea Makri. The actual town of Marathon is very close, just a few miles outside of Nea Makri. But the events that occurred here were all throughout this area. The Museum of Marathon. So there is much to explain about the events that transpired more than 2,500 years ago, right around here. But I want to do that explanation at the right location. So I'm going to go inside the Marathon Museum here and look around, see what there is to see and to show perhaps in the video, and then head somewhere else and talk about the momentousness of what transpired here. Cast of the Boy of Marathon, found in the Sea of Marathon, 340 BC. So that is later history than what I will be talking about more soon. Cave of Pan. The cave was occupied continuously from the late Neolithic period, 5,300 to 4,300 BC. Many artifacts here. So these are from many different time frames, but the focus of this video is one particular event. Burial mounds at the site Branas. A cemetery of tumuli was created in the Middle Bronze Age, 2000 to 1600 BC. So now is, of course, the year 2024. 2,514 years ago, in 490 BC, a great battle took place here across these plains between the sea and the mountains there. A much greater Persian army of around 25,000 troops attacked here and battled with a much smaller Greek or Athenian army of around 10,000. The Greek Athenians took advantage of the geography and managed to very decisively defeat the Persian invasion. A man named Philippides was involved in the battle and witnessed a Persian ship turning around, and he was afraid that it might be heading to the city of Athens to claim a false victory, I guess to potentially try to get them to surrender by saying that they, the Persians, had won the battle. And so he began to run. He threw away his weapons, even his clothes, and ran naked all the way to Athens, approximately 26 miles from here. When he arrived, he he proclaimed to the people of Athens, "We have been victorious." And then, so the legend goes, he collapsed and died on the spot there. Now, that legend about Philippides running from here to Athens is not 100% historically concluded to be true. It is a legend, very likely based on some sort of a real event. There is also another similar story, yet different, about a man also named Philippides who ran from Athens to Sparta and then back, and that is a distance of 150 miles one way. And so the historical records are a little bit mixed up there, but that is why we have the modern day marathon. The actual specific distance was determined in the 1920s, but it is based on that event, the Battle of Marathon here. That was the first attempt by the Persians to overtake, conquer, and ultimately attempt to subjugate Greece and the Greek people and nation. They were defeated and retreated, and ultimately never succeeded in further attempts to try to take over Greece. Now, this right here is the trophy of the Marathon victory. Some years after the historic Battle of Marathon in 490 BC, the Athenians erected a trophy to commemorate their victory over the Persians, in contrast to the makeshift trophies of the battles between the Greek cities, because the, empire, really just the Greek civilization, which was not one organized, unified empire at that time, it was various city-states, would battle between each other. And so, in contrast to the makeshift trophies of the battles between the Greek cities, in which an armor of the defeated was hung on a tree trunk, and so the armor of one of the opposing soldiers would be hung up, and presumably that armor would, be specific to whatever Greek city-state, and so people would know we defeated them. The trophies of the Persian wars were of monumental character. The trophy of the general Miltiades, the architect of the defeat of the Persians, which, as Themistocles said, did not let him sleep soundly, is referred to proudly by ancient authors. As the traveler Pausanias, so 2nd century AD, more than 600 years later, relates, it was built of white marble. And so I'm presuming that that is a reconstruction of the ancient trophy symbolizing the Battle of Marathon and the Greek victory. So this battle was truly one of the main turning points of human history going forwards from that point, because of all of the various historical events that occurred afterwards, which would have very likely been altered significantly, and many of which would not have occurred if the Persians had won this battle and succeeded in getting through the mountains and getting over to Athens and defeating the Athenians there. Now, they had many more troops on reserve on ships out in the waters, but 25,000 was the main army infantry land warriors. And so presumably those additional troops would have been available to continue on with a conquest if they had succeeded from this point. But they did not. If they had, then imagine all of the events that transpired afterwards, which really could not have taken place if the Persians had truly taken over Greece and established themselves here. So Alexander the Great lived in the 4th century BC. After this battle in 490, the Parthenon was built later in the 5th century BC. The classical period of Greece occurred after this battle here. And so, very likely, none of that would have occurred. If Alexander the Great hadn't done what he did, well, first his father, King Philip, unified the various Greek city-states by conquering them. And then he was assassinated, King Philip, and his son Alexander the Great then became king. And King Philip had an aspiration to invade and conquer Persia and push them back because of the attempts by the Persians to conquer Greece. And so Alexander the Great and his conquests, undefeated in battle, were inspired by his father's vision, which he decided to carry out. After his father died, he then organized an army to go to Persia in modern-day Turkey and attack and to do what he could to push them back and remove that threat against Greece. And what he did was ultimately phenomenally successful, because he didn't stop at Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, where Persia occupied, but he continued and continued and continued. He took over the Middle East, Jerusalem, into Egypt, and then continuing eastwards through, Afghanistan, into India as it was at that time, and established Greek civilization all throughout there. And the Greeks, of course, settled all through Anatolia. Constantinople, the great city that then became the capital of the Byzantine Empire after the fall of the Roman Empire, and existed for more than a millennium, ultimately conquered by the Ottomans in 1453 AD. But Greek civilization all through that region very likely wouldn't have occurred if the Persians had invaded here and conquered and, been here for a great length of time. And then you have to wonder if even the Jesus story could have occurred if the Greeks hadn't been in there, because that affected the whole history there. Of course, the Romans came later and were occupying Israel, Jerusalem, during the time of Christ. But that would have affected all of the, coming Roman history in some way. And so this battle really had a big impact on world history going forwards from there. So now let's drive to the actual little town of Marathon and go take a look and see what actually exists there now. Here you have a little Greek church. Already checked, it is locked. There you can see Athena Marathonis. Athena, Athens, named after the goddess Athena. So this is the little town of Marathon, where there is another museum that I'm heading to now. Marathon Palace, so what is that? I don't know, but let's go take a look. Maybe it's just a hotel. It is currently 3:06. The monuments around here close at around like 3:15 or 3:30, I think. So going to walk to the museum first, which is right down this street, and see if I'm lucky enough to get inside. So this is pretty cool. You probably can't see too well, but your location to Athens. And guess what it says? 1 hour, 4 minutes, 42 kilometers. That's awesome. That is 26 miles. That's a marathon. Center for the Promotion of the Marathon Race. So the Marathon Museum is here as well. Maybe that's the same thing. And no, I have never run a marathon. However, I once walked about that distance in a day. I told a whole story about that in another video. That must be the Marathon Museum. It is not looking very open, although I think that the gate is open. So, very long story short, I was backpacking on the Lost Coast Tuesday through Friday, open until 3. It is 3:09 or something, 3:11. So I guess this is an appropriate enough point at which to tell my marathon walking story. Does that say Alice? Which means Greece? Not certain, but looks like it could be. Oh. Did they forget to lock the door? I guess I'll just show what I can. The spirit of marathon. Oh, this is great to at least just get a little glimpse of some of the marathon running history. Kyriakides, obviously a Greek, Greece, with victor's wreath at 1946 Boston Marathon. (1946) Kyriakides, welcome. Same guy. So Boston Marathon, but then when he came back to Greece, he got a hero's welcome. I think it's got to be closed. This is wild. Hello? Oh, this is hilarious. Los Angeles, 1932. The great star of the Los Angeles Olympic Marathon ought to have been Paavo Nurmi of Finland. A few weeks before the Games, the famous Finn completed a convincing trial run in which he covered 40 kilometers in 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 3.8 seconds. He looked unbeatable, but the International Amateur Athletics Federation disqualified him for professionalism, and the Olympic title went to an Argentinian, Juan Zabala, aged only 21. Okay, I feel like I should probably skedaddle. But you can see just lots of information about the various, looks like a focus on the Olympics. The London Marathon was marked by a tragedy not unlike the one of 1908. The Belgian runner Richard Gailey led the race magisterially for a long time. At one time, he had a 1 minute 30-second lead. Some 1,000 meters short of the Wembley Stadium, the Belgian attempted a commando operation.
He shook off Cabrena, who had caught him up and gone 100 meters ahead, but like Durando Pietri, Gailey suffered a terrible collapse once he entered the stadium. Staggering and wild-eyed, he watched helplessly as first Cabrena, then Tom Richard passed him. In the end, he had to be satisfied with bronze. Okay, let's cruise before somebody comes in and says, "What are you doing? Breaking into the museum?" Paris, 1924. The Battle of Marathon, 490 BC. 2,500 year anniversary in 2010. Okay, well that was unexpectedly awesome. What if I'm now locked in? Okay, good. So a quick encapsulation of my own kind of sort of marathon day. I was backpacking on the lost coast of Northern California. This was, I believe, 1996. I had planned to go on this backpacking trip that was going to take, like, I think 10 days, maybe even 2 weeks, going up the coast along the beach, and then from there hiking up to the coast range of mountains there, and then coming down a trail through the mountains. And so it would be like a week going up the beach along the coast, camping, you know, just me and my tent and food along the way, and then coming back down through the forest and the mountains along an established trail. But on the second day, it started raining, and it rained and it rained and it rained, like literally non-stop for the next 6 days. Hiking in the rain, setting up my tent in the rain, and so I got to the point at which I would turn onto a trail, go up the mountain there, and then I got to the point at which I would have turned to start hiking along the trail going south back along the like ridge of the mountains there, and then take another week to get back that way, what I had just hiked for a week coming this way along the beach along the coast. And I was standing there in the rain, drenched, thinking, oh my god, I have another week of this. But the road continued. So I had walked up like this sort of a gravel, like Jeep road kind of a thing, and then it got to the point where the trail turned off, but the road continued. I didn't know exactly where that road went. I had a map, but the map that I had was just of the Lost Coast area, and the edge of the map was not that far away from where I was. It just kind of stopped, and so I didn't know exactly where this road went. But I reasoned, it's a road. It probably connects to a more main road. I mean, not a road with any traffic on it, but just like a gravel, skinny little road. And so I thought, well, I'm taking a chance, but let's go for it and see if I can actually get out of here and be done with this adventure. And so I walked and I walked and I walked, and it went for miles and miles and miles, and finally I got to a road, a proper road. That road was in the middle of nowhere still, but one that could have traffic on it. I walked along that for a ways, it came to another road, I continued walking on that, and then some cars started going by, and so I started hitchhiking. They passed me, but just as the sun was about to go down and I was thinking about heading into the woods and just setting up my tent, then a car stopped, a nice guy with a cabin in the woods. He took me to his place. I got to stay there for the night. He had a nice warm stove. All my stuff was all soaking wet, and had a nice night's sleep there, and then the next day got back out on the road and hitchhiked onwards from there. And so I don't recall exactly how much that distance was, but once I got back home, then I took out a map that, you know, included all of those roads and tried to calculate approximately how far I had walked in that one day of hiking with, you know, my backpack and all my stuff on my back. And I remember that I figured out it was 20 something miles, 23, 25, something like that. So kind of close to a marathon, but definitely not official. Okay, I am going to aspire to finish this video with one more historical monument, if it is more or less on the way of where I plan to go next from here, because my road trip continues. I don't even know where I'm staying tonight, but I have a general idea of where I'm going next. So let's go see a little something more. So it looks like the Marathon Palace is indeed a hotel, I guess. So let's journey onwards, further north into Greece. A quiet little town here with lots of abandoned cars. Definitely not the best of Greece, but I will be getting there on this trip. Let's see what that town was. And now this is Grammatico. You must speak correctly here. Grammatico, grammar. Helios Airways Flight 522 was a scheduled passenger flight from Larnaca, Cyprus to Prague, Czech Republic, with a stopover in Athens, Greece. Shortly after takeoff on 14th August 2005, all right, got to get rolling here. I will explain what that is about. A tragic event, which I remember seeing in the news back in 2005 when it happened. So this plane took off from Larnaca, Cyprus, and the cabin wasn't properly pressurized, and so the entire crew and all the passengers fell asleep, went unconscious, and the plane crashed right near here. I was not thinking about that. I just saw a sign for the memorial site and then pulled off to see how far away it was. It's 5 kilometers, a 10-minute drive out this winding road in the wrong direction, so I'm not going to drive out there, but just thought that I would mention it. And so it was basically flying on its own for some period of time until it crashed there and all passengers and crew died. And so on the Wikipedia page it says that it occurred in Grammatico, which I just, showed the sign for right here. I had no idea. I knew that it had crashed into the mountains outside of Athens. Another piece of history and a very sad event. Okay. Time to pay attention and figure out where I'm going here. Grammatico Marathonis. Quite sobering when you realize the tragedies that occurred in both of those towns. So I thought that if I can get through here, we could look out at the hills and see where that plane crash occurred. a strange tunnel in this rock. So out there you can see the sea and the plains where the Battle of Marathon took place. And so somewhere out there, I guess, is where the plane crashed. I can see the sea again there, and then more land. And that must be Evia Island, the second largest island of Greece. It is barely an island, almost connected to the mainland, other than a very narrow channel that is up there. Okay, let's keep on cruising. Another 15 minutes or so up the road is the last place that I want to visit today to conclude this video. A historic tour through Attica, Greece, and beyond. Well, it's not quite as impressive as I thought that it might be seeing the pictures online, but here you go, the ancient Tower of Barnabas. Here in a pleasant countryside area with nice looking homes. And so there is one other fact about the Battle of Marathon that I forgot to mention previously, which is the number of soldiers killed on either side. On the Greek side, only 200 soldiers died. On the Persian side, 6,400 Persians died. And so that shows you how they managed to overwhelm a much larger army, apparently by using like the passes in the mountains that the Persians were trying to get through, something like that. So how old was this thing? I couldn't really find any information about it online. I just saw it on the map. But that is not quite the end, because there is another old tower just 2 minutes away from here. So apparently the other tower is down here. Yes. That one looks more interesting. Uh-oh. The way is very much blocked. Maybe down around here. Ay. I thought that the day of adventuring was over. So close. Maybe there's a way to access it from the other side. And here we have another gate that way. There's got to be a way to get to it. So I spoke with the guy working on that house there, and he said it was okay to go through. But am I actually going to be able to get through? Oh boy. Yes! Alright. This was the way. So, it is a Frankish medieval tower. And as much as I could figure out looking online, this is part of the Crusades. Frankish, as in French, crusaders who came through here on their way to the Holy Lands, trying to take it back from the Arabs, the Muslims. The current, very tragic war going on in Gaza and the West Bank and Israel, of course, is a continuation essentially of that conflict between the Judeo-Christian culture, Jews and Christians, and the Arabic Muslims. So, like 12th, 13th century, somewhere around there, I think. Crazy. So much history around here. All right, time for me to get cruising and make some progress further north. I think that I know what I'm doing, but it will depend on booking a ferry. And so I need to look into that and see when one is available along with the car to the island that I would like to go to next. More coming from Greece. Have a good one. Safe travels. There's the tower. And look how the adventure today ends. The guy left. That was only 5 minutes ago when I spoke with him. I thought that he was like hard at work there, but obviously the end of his workday. He left and locked the gate. And look at that lock. It is serious. And no place to put my feet on this side. Here we go. Hopefully there aren't security cameras around. Okay, take it easy.